Item 17 will be canceled today. We will not hold it. Second, there are 4 closed sessions held last Tuesday, April 1st, 2008. And that's no fooling. First, a closed session was held pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9B1, Conference with Legal Counsel, Anticipated Litigation. Significant exposure to litigation, 1 case, resulting in no action taken. Second, a closed session was held regarding public employee discipline, dismissal, release pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, resulting in no action taken. Third, a closed session was held regarding conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, property APNs 44-011-049 and 44-011-052. Agency negotiator Brent Harrington or alternate to be determined. Negotiating party Ryan Voorhees under negotiation instruction to negotiator regarding potential purchase price financing options, resulting in no action taken. And finally, a closed session was held pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9B1, Conference with Legal Counsel, Anticipated Litigation, Significant Exposure to Litigation, 1 case, continued from 3/25/08, resulting in no action taken. We will now turn our attention to the consent agenda. These are items expected to be routine and non-controversial. They'll be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or member of the public or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion. Are there any removals requested by the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear more about items 3 and 4, the Eagle Scout.
Okay. Items 3 and 4 are removed from the consent agenda. Any other removals from staff and members of the public?
Mr. Chairman, I'm hearing some discussion here that these presentations are going to be given later. Is that?
Yeah, right after we've approved the consent agenda, we'll bring them up and give the presentation.
No, Tom.
Presented
No, separately. Saturday. Saturday in Valley Springs.
Oh,
Would you like to remove your request for?
well, then you better approve it.
So, yes, I would like to remove that.
All right. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on 5-0. Consent agenda in full is approved. We will now recess for 3 minutes before coming to items from the public.
Russ, these were mathematical.
If some of you in back would like to take seats over here, you're more than welcome.
And another.
Okay, this meeting will come back into session, and we are now on item 13, public comments. I would request that all members of the public who wish to comment limit their comments to 5 minutes per person so that we can get through our agenda today, as is our norm and custom. 5 minutes is our limit. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a presentation?
Actually, I do. Are you going off the list? Or?
Actually, it's just in order of people coming to the podium.
Me first?
You're the first up, so yes, could you please state your name?
My name is Kelly Wright, and I'm on the cemetery board of Murphy's Angels Camp. We bury people from Douglas Flat up all the way to Alpine County. And that's one of the reasons why I'm talking today. I'd like to start my not speech, but my presentation with a Latin phrase. And I'd like to end it with a Latin phrase. And that's because back in the old days, whenever I did this, Paul Stein would smile and lean forward. So I figure, you get a little more attention.
Has he bought a plot yet?
He looks like he's going to live quite long. So I ran into at the Leonard Skinner concert.
So there is life after board
So
service.
anyway, my first Latin phrase, I don't want to take too much time, is what we call ourselves. That would be Janinus Laki, which means the guardian spirit of a place. Now, my fellow directors of the Murphy's District have been talking about this, tossing this idea around for quite a while, and we're going to try to nail it down, and that's why I'm speaking to all the supervisors here. We want to have a once-a-year joint get-together with all the districts in one spot to toss around problems, solutions, because some people have solutions to our problems, and maybe we have solutions to their problems. And we don't, and it's never been before, people have gotten together and mixed it up, you know. And I'd like to invite the Board of Supervisors to this meeting, which is not quite yet set as far as time, but don't worry, we'll let you know. And I ran into Marita Calloway at the grocery store the other day, and she said that if we're going to do something like that, we can't have it at a private home. Is that right, Marita? She said something about talking to the county council, and so we might have to have it at like, say, the, I don't know, that place above the firehouse, the
Native Sons Hall, something like that.
something somewhere, yeah.
That would be.
Is that, Jim?
But
No, this is
we have
David.
to, announce that, because if we have
Yes,
more
I
than
understand that.
2 board members present, then,
Right,
basically.
over two, then, yes.
And you will have to announce it, we will have to
Sure.
meet the Brown Act requirements.
So that, I'm here to just invite all 5 Board of Supervisors, because you all have people you appointed to your cemetery board districts, and we'd love to have you attend too. I'm not expecting all 5 of you, because you're all busy guys and women. But,
Thank you, Kelly.
but at the same time, if you all 5 show up, the public will really like it, because it shows interest in the end.
In the end.
In the end.
How many people in the cemetery vote?
They don't vote.
In your district, quite a few.
We have 3. We have 3.
I registered most of them myself, Kelly.
We have 3 in our district. And the problem is with our district is, once we get higher and higher, it gets colder and colder, and the ground is harder and harder. So expansion for us is difficult, as opposed to Copperopolis or, down below. But that's another story to be talked about at that meeting. And before I end with my Latin phrase, my second one, I'd like to invite everybody here, including, I know Tom's going to be there, to the candidates night, which is tonight at 7 o'clock at the Native Sons Hall in Murphy's, sponsored by the Mountain Chronicle. And I don't know if it's been publicized well enough, so that's another, I just want to throw that out to everybody. Because we have 4 candidates running for Tom's office, including Tom, and this could be a good little meeting or candidates night. And not to take too much time, I'd like to end with another Latin phrase. And that would be modus vivendi, which means a way of getting along together. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for calling for that meeting. It's a good idea.
Next.
Good morning. Lynette Norfolk, Treasurer Tax Collector. This is a courtesy announcement because Thursday, April 10th, is the second installment of property taxes due date. So please, everyone who might be listening, thinking, wondering, whatever, there are many ways to make payment in the office, by check with the postmark on the 10th. We have a lockbox in the parking lot. We accept credit card transactions. So there you have it. Thank you.
Marty Crane. Just in case April 10th is a sour day for everybody, There's something else we can celebrate, and that happens to be the day that Superman came to Earth. FYI.
To Earth. Don't you remember?
My name is Michael Bottoni, and I live in San Andreas. And I'd like to take 5 minutes to discuss a situation that's developed in this county and share with you some correspondence. For people's reference, I'm going to use an initialism called CCW. That means a carry a concealed weapons permit, and it's in this documentation. This is a letter I'm giving to Dennis Downham. Now, Dennis is here. He hasn't gotten the letter yet. It's in the mail. I'm going to share it with everyone here. Dennis, this is an open letter to you, which I am sharing with the Board of Supervisors during the open portion of their meeting Tuesday, April 8th, 2008, and it is open for the reasons provided within its text. While I am aware this is a may-issue state, and you have complete authority to grant, deny, or revoke a concealed weapons permit for any reason, in reviewing your letter of April 2nd, 2008, requiring I surrender my CCW permit, you identify as the reason for the revocation, and it has been brought to my attention that in recent events you exercised poor judgment. For these reasons, I have no choice but to revoke the CCW, which was issued to you on January 4th, 2008, effective immediately. Having legally carried a concealed weapon on an almost daily basis for the last 12 years, probably much longer than most people in your department, I would appreciate the courtesy of a more explicit explanation. I have had little contact with your office during the last 4 months, other than getting the CCW renewed or when your officers have responded to complaints from my neighbors about my lawful and safe target practicing. There has been no contact. I would like you to identify the display of poor judgment in the following recent events that resulted in this revocation. Perhaps I can learn from my mistakes, and eventually you will consider your decision, or your successor come next election will come to a different conclusion. Which of these events were an exercise in poor judgment in your opinion? Lawfully and safely target practicing in the month of December with my adult daughter? Was it during that December session while I was training my daughter in the safe operation of a handgun, sharing the legal and moral requirements of ownership, and the parameters existing in California for the lawful use of her weapon in self-defense? If not those events, was it how I assisted your officers who had responded to a complaint by my neighbors, Jim and Karen Hagan, that December day? Could it have been my helping them document for their report how I was shooting in a lawful and safe manner? Was it providing your officers with a rangefinder so they could see for themselves the exact yardages involved in the incident and not have to guess distances to verify I was well within the requirements of County Code 912030? Was it poor judgment to know that my neighbors would complain, so I left the shell casings on the ground where they fell so your responding officers would be able to determine where we were discharging our weapons? Maybe the poor judgment was my showing them the law enforcement grade backstop and used targets to negate any concerns they may have had about the safety aspects of my practice routine. Then again, it could have been my believing your officers when they said their report would put this matter to bed once and for all. If it wasn't the December events, perhaps it was associated with the March target practicing session. Which one of these events on this day was it? Not doubting your officer's previous declaration that the matter would be put to bed, I decided to target practice again. Practicing in the same legal and safe location as on the previous occasion. Truthfully relating to your officer the time of practice, the number of rounds shot, the location of the activity, and type of weapon. Perhaps it was showing the officer the actual backstop and targets I had used. Was it poor judgment asking your officer why he was at my door? Was it poor judgment to expect your responding officer to know the county ordinance he was supposedly responding to? Then again, when your officer informed me he did not know the code, maybe it was poor judgment to suggest he wouldn't have been at my door if he had called someone to find out what the code was. When he told me it was after 4 p.m. and no one would be available, was it then poor judgment to let the officers know I felt it was a disservice to him to not be trained in the laws he was supposed to enforce, nor supply sufficient backup for him to be informed in the field if needed? Those were the recent events leading up to your decision. I still don't see the poor judgment you allege. Would you give me a hand here and educate me? When I brought my permit in, I asked to have a word with you. When you eventually came out of your office, I could see you were quite tense. I offered my hand to show this was not a confrontational meeting. It did not change your demeanor. This was a short, under 2-minute meeting, but very informative. Remember, I started by letting you know I was aware of your authority to take the action you did, but I wanted to know why. I was informed that I did not get along with my neighbors. You said you even had the code changed to help the Hagans. You mentioned them by name. At least you admitted the code change was made specifically to help the Hagans. I always suspected. Our conversation was over as you abruptly turned to leave the area. In a calm manner, I said we would be talking more about this again, and here's why this letter is open. Your body stiffened as your head turned to look over your shoulder at me, your features hardened, your eyes narrowed, and your voice had a practiced, threatening tone when you responded, "I am sure we will." Dennis, this is the way I see this. You have the power to pull a permit. Of that, there is no question. You have taken sides when one neighbor, the Hagans, wanted the other, me, to stop doing something the Hagans did not like, but which I am legally entitled to do. You long ago selected the winner and guaranteed their success. When a code change and my compliance with it didn't satisfy them, you have now taken punitive action against me. When a law-abiding citizen doesn't do something you want them to, even though required to do so by any law other than your personal feelings, you abuse your power under the color of authority and punish that individual. During our short meeting, I got your not too subtly implied threat. Due to your taken and implied actions, I am assuming your friends the Hagans, can have your way. I will no longer target practice on my property. Not because I'm not allowed to, but because I'm afraid to. Thank you. Now, I have copies of this for you, for your pleasure. And there's also supporting documentation included from previous correspondence over the last 5 years with Dennis' office concerning the same issue. Thank you for your time.
Are there other comments from the public?
Joe Kelly. Supervisors, do you feel the county has fully disclosed to the voters and citizens the ramifications of Measure J and AB 900? Or do the people have the right to know? May 3rd, 2007, the Green Deficit State Governor signed AB 900 into law, appropriating $1.2 billion in jail construction funding. Phase 1, $750 million. Legislative benchmark of 4,000 beds in jails. Interim construction funding from the Pooled Money Investment Account. At the end of December 2007, the Pooled Money Investment Account portfolio totaled $62.89 billion. The daily investment activity in December 2007 averaged $1.67 billion. Long-term financing for jail construction funding is through the sale of state lease revenue bonds from the State Public Works Board, SPWB. This financing mechanism, now this is key, requires the SPWD, on behalf of the state of California, to hold ownership interest of the jail facilities subject to the bonds being sold and paid off approximately 25 to 30 years. The SPWB will lease the jail facilities to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, who will in turn sublease the jail facilities to the participating county for their use and operation in the care and custody of county jail inmates. The facility sublease, county jail, is subject to and subordinate to the facilities lease, CDCR, terms. The lease term runs as long as the lease revenue bonds issued for the jail facility are outstanding but not to exceed 35 years. The facility lease is entered into when the lease revenue bonds are issued by the SWPD. Another point of concern. Subject to availability of the jail facility for occupancy, CDCR has the right to occupy and use it, and in return agree to rent. The revised maximum daily jail rate for fiscal year 2007-2008 is $77.17 per inmate per day. In the event of breach by the CDCR that goes uncured, the SPWD may evict CDCR and could relet the jail facility to the county. The county would then pay the debt service on the bonds. The county could request language allowing for this in its lease and agreements with the state. Can Calaveras County afford this long-term debt service liability? Also, counties are solely responsible for the payment of higher than anticipated costs, so the numbers better be right. The Corrections Standards Authority does not have a cost per bed figure to use as a basis, largely because there's a lack of current jail construction cost data. The last jail construction was completed in the early 1990s. Now this leads one to wonder, who's responsible for the formulating of Calaveras County's jail construction cost? What is their background and expertise on jail construction? And then looking at the concept of a default, let's look at the whole broad picture. If there's a default happening in California, what happens to the collateralized monies of the cops and tobacco program that are funding these properties you're buying for the jail and the expansion, future expansions of this county government center? Are the citizens of Calaveras the primary borrowers subject to the repayment of loans for the properties recently purchased and or being purchased? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there another member from the public who wishes to make a comment? That's a good case of discretion being the better part of valor.
I'm sorry. Sorry I pushed Larry out of the way there, but I thought it was important that I talk behind Mr. Kelly there. I would really like to invite Mr. Kelly over to our agency. We would be more than happy to share with him all of AB 900, all of the stuff we've done on Measure J, and he's more than welcome to look at everything we've done in this entire process. It may not alleviate all his fears or concerns, but at least he'll be operating off the same information we're operating under, and be more than happy to do that.
That's a great invitation, and I would hope it would be taken up.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cornish.
Good morning. I'm Larry Cornish with Mark Twain Hospital, and I wanted to give you a monthly update from the hospital on some things that's been going on and some things in the future. First of all, I want to back up the bus and talk a little bit about the Health Career Day that we had at Toyon Middle School on March 21st. It was attended by 250 8th graders. We had 27 healthcare vocational booths at the fair to let the kids know what vocations there are in healthcare. It was also attended by some of our first responders in Calaveras County, and we actually had one of the vets from Angels Camp Veterinarian on site as well. From the Sheriff's Office, we had Anthony Eberhardt and Chris Hewitt talking to the kids about vocations in the Sheriff's Department. We had CHP there as well. And Crystal Clark was there from Public Health, showing some of the vocations that they have in the Public Health Department here at the county. So it seemed like a pretty good event. We're going to do a little bit earlier next year. It's going to be an annual type of activity for the kids. And we look forward to helping to provide some direction to some kids who may not recognize all the vocations that we have here in Calaveras County in the field of healthcare. Last week was Doctors Week, so we helped to celebrate that with our physicians. This week, of course, is Public Health, and I'm not going to steal their thunder. I know they're behind me. And in the area of physician recruitment, which is something that all of us are interested in, we now have the credentialing completed and contracts in place for Dr. Paul Wynn, family practice. He'll be joining us in the next 90 days, along with Dr. Luis Perez, family practice, and Dr. Chris Wong, who's a pediatrician. That'll be a full-time pediatrician spot, probably putting Dr. Wong in Angels Camp area. We continue to recruit aggressively for a full-time urologist and gastrointestinal specialist at the hospital. So we're doing quite well in the area of physician recruitment. Some upcoming things, April 19th, our Hospital Foundation's putting on their, I think it's their 8th annual Festival of Wine in Murphy's. That's a great day to enjoy Murphy's and some good wine. I think there are 21 wineries that are represented during that day. That's a Saturday. May 2nd, Take It Heart Foundation's 3rd annual Celebrity Luncheon. I think that a couple of you are going to be attending that. I'd like to see all of you attend that. That's going to be at Ironstone. The Take It Heart Foundation, of course, raises all the money that they're making so that it can support the Family Fit program that's being rolled out to all 4th and 5th grade classes in Calaveras County to try to combat childhood obesity. And May 14th, our county fair. I want to let you know what we're doing out at the fair this year. We're going to be sponsoring Cowboy Kids Day on Thursday. Our thrift stores, once again, are sponsoring the Junior Fair Board. The livestock auction catalog and the official fair guide are being sponsored by the hospital. And, of course, the first aid booth will be manned by a registered nurse 24 hours a day for the 5-day run of the fair at no cost to the community. A total commitment of about $8,000 this year. And lastly, Carmen's Restaurant. I can't get away without talking about Carmen's Restaurant. We now have a hotline so you can call and find out what we're serving for lunch. It's 754-2468. And we accept credit cards now, too.
You and the tax collector.
You got it. Any questions? Good. Thank you.
Larry, are you looking for a pediatrician?
Another one. Actually, I mentioned Dr. Chris Wong, pediatrician.
Okay.
And I think that Dr. Wong has a colleague who's also applying for the position. I think they're coming out next week for an interview.
Okay.
If you know one, let me know.
I do.
Good. Good. Thank you.
Great. Board of Supervisors as job fair. Is there anybody else who would like to speak under items from the public? In that event, we will move to item 14, wherein the Board of Supervisors gets the distinct honor and privilege of presenting awards to parents nominated for their leadership skills and outstanding work with children in our county's Prevent Child Abuse program. And I believe we have a number of people here to speak on it, and an even greater number to receive proper recognition for their good work.
Good morning. My name is Arlene Garland, and I'm a member of the Prevent Child Abuse Calaveras Council. And I'm really happy to be here today and we really appreciate the Board of Supervisors giving us the time and actually presenting the awards to parents that have actually been nominated by people in their own community and have actually shown leadership skills and in the area of working with children and doing things with children. We do, during the months of February and March, we recruit nominations from the different communities. And in April, since April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, we take that time to present the awards to the different parents. And I will turn it over to Tammy Beilstein, who is our outreach coordinator. And Tammy does a wonderful job and has done so for the last 4 years in putting this whole project together.
Thank you. I'm Tammy Beilstein. I'm from Valley Springs. Arlene's going to give each of you the folders that belong to the people in your district. We'll start with District 1. And I'll just read a couple of sentences about each person that we are going to be honoring today. Is there someone here representing Brandon Stonecipher?
Tammy, Bill goes a little slower than
Okay. I'll wait. Well, Brandon wasn't able to make it today. He's 22 years old. He's in college, and he's at school right now. But are you here for Brandon? Yes. Why don't you go up there and you can get his award for him. So Brandon Stonecipher, a full-time student working toward his teaching credentials, a 4-H leader, camp counselor, and cabin leader from Marin County Outdoor School, counselor and group leader for science camp outdoor education for several different schools in Calaveras County, a mentor to 2 children with the Calaveras Youth Mentoring Program, and working in the after-school program with the Calaveras County School District. Brandon is making an amazing difference in the lives of many children. Are you Brandon's mother? Yes. Oh, awesome boy. Joe and Anna Gates. Well, this is Anna Gates. Joe and Anna are good role models in raising 4 very active children. They have a calm demeanor and lovingly train and direct their children with a good balance of love and appropriate discipline. They view parenting as a team effort, giving each other the time that he or she needs to be alone. In addition to this, Joe and Anna routinely use all the community resources available to them in Calaveras County and are quick to encourage others to make use of the services they need. They're great examples of what it means to be a parent leader. Sistine Strill. Is Sistine here? No? Okay. Ann Wathen.
Far away to the front.
Ann is a juvenile probation officer with the Calaveras County Probation Department. Ann is known to be professional in her work, yet warm and caring toward the children. The woman who nominated Ann said, "My grandson feels safe with his probation officer, which is unusual because he does not like many females. He actually keeps her card out and calls her when he gets into trouble or has made a mistake. He knows Ann will not accept any excuses, and she's always truthful with him." Oh, sure, I will do that. Cecine, who was, I guess, not able to make it today, she is a mother of 6. Her children are gracious, responsible, intelligent, self-motivated, all of which is the end result of a special mother's love and dedication. Cecine's children are extremely proud of her, indicating that she's a strong woman of integrity. We can think of no greater endorsement for our Parent Leadership Award than that of a mother's own children. Steve.
Hi, I wonder whether we could call all the District 2 recipients up together and they could step forward one at a time.
Sure. One of them I don't think is here. The Denise Moat, Dave and Jean Hector, and Karen Maines. Yeah, hop on up there.
Yeah, of course. Come on up. Yep, everybody come on up.
We'd like to take a group picture at the end with everyone, if that's possible. Yeah.
Have to have a wide-angle lens.
Okay, Denise Moat. Denise has 3 grown sons, yet she continues to volunteer with children. She teaches preschool, Sunday school, is a group leader at church. She coaches 5th and 6th grade boys basketball. She's a high school camp counselor in the summer, and she's always willing to be a chaperone, cook, and do whatever is needed to help the children in her area.
And she is everywhere.
She's right here.
And we do mean everywhere. Right now she's in Israel.
Yeah.
However, this is not Denise, but will receive the award. Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have Dave and Jean Hector. Dave and Jean are not only excellent parents to their 3 biological sons, but they've adopted a sibling group of 6 who are abused in every form. Dave and Jean have tirelessly worked to reverse the harmful effects of that abuse. They've taken 6 children out of the world of maltreatment and given them a chance at a safe and healthy life.
This family falls into my category of heroes every day.
Yeah.
There are 2 kinds of people in this world, folks who are making it a better place and people who aren't. These folks are at the head of the line.
And Karen Maines. Karen is a 30-year resident of West Point, where she raised her children, grandchildren, and a huge group of extended children who live in her community. Karen is a longtime volunteer for the Blue Mountain Coalition of Youth and Families, where she donates food and drinks, participates in the various projects, and unassumingly models good parenting to the teens as well as to their families. Karen is invaluable and an inspiration to many in the West Point community.
And to show just how much of a value, we have an additional presentation besides the award.
Aww. Oh, that's lovely.
A true community treasure of West Point and tremendous contributions over a very long time. Congratulations. Good work. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Would you like everyone up all at once? Sure. Okay. Catherine Eustace, Amy Roll, Dan and Maureen Sider, and Gail Bungie. Yeah. Afterward?
Are you in a hurry? I think I'm going to be at Frogtown at 10:30 for a walk. Sorry. Walking to Frogtown. Did you want to tell the audience?
Ah.
Which is the Saturday?
Well, first we'll start with Catherine. Oh.
I just wanted to, I just happened to be, it has nothing to do with my being a parent, the chairperson of the Friends Child Youth Council right now, and also, as you know, head of the Calaveras Youth Mentoring Program. And I just wanted to add an extra thank you to the parent leaders who are being awarded today. I know a lot of the people who are being recognized and who are recommending other people and are participating in our program. So I can also add my thank you. You do amazing work. How you guys? It's a wrap. That's why she's getting
Yeah.
talk about
Yes, I would. Well, Catherine is the woman who birthed the Calaveras Youth Mentoring Program. This program has made a tremendous difference in the lives of many families. In addition to her passion for families and children, Catherine is a fantastic mother, raising her son and daughter to be active and responsible citizens, as well as supporting their many projects.
Thank you. That's really nice.
Amy Roll. Rail? I'm sorry. Try to say Beilstein. Yeah.
And this woman back there with the pink thing hanging from her, she also won nominated.
Oh,
Chris
nice.
had been one of the first nominees, the librarian and on.
Okay, well, Amy is the school director at Mountain Play School. She guides and teaches the preschoolers there as well as the adults. Amy's friend said Amy stepped in to teach the CCOE adult ed class when the former teacher had to leave. She's been a phenomenal role model for the parents and an amazing guide for the entire family. Amy is a strong, well-respected parenting resource for the Ebbets Pass community and an essential part of the school community. Congratulations. Dan and Maureen Sider. Here.
I'll take it to his office. Would you like to just...
Sure, I'll read this little paragraph here. Dan and Maureen have raised 4 outstanding young people. Their neighbors said living next to them was always lively, but they were wonderful neighbors ready to lend support in many ways. Their children are people of good character and great manners, delightful and energetic kids. It takes more than luck to raise such children. It takes the depth of character and commitment that Dan and Maureen exhibit so well. Dan and Maureen have done it all with wisdom, humor, patience, and a lot of love. Okay, and next we have Gail Bungie. Gail and her husband have raised 2 bright, engaging children. One is in college and one is a senior at Bret Harte High School. Gail is a very involved woman and can be seen at all Ebbets Pass area events. Gail's friend said, Gail has introduced me to the challenges of children with physical disabilities and to the services that are and are not available. Gail has moved her passion for children's issues into the political arena and is now on the Bret Harte High School board. It's an honor to have her talent and involvement in our community. Thank you. District 4, Jean D. Herrera, Hal and Janice Dillashaw, and Mary Lears.
Chris, I don't want you leaving till I get to hold the baby.
Jean. Well, first we have Jean D. Herrera. I just want to go on the record as saying I love this man. Awesome man. Jean is a Calaveras County Sheriff Officer who's developed or participated in a variety of programs designed to help kids. In the past 6 months alone, Jean contributed to many of our high school and middle school drug awareness programs, and he produced and directed a play for the Avery Middle School students. Jean is the driving force behind many of our county's Red Ribbon Week activities. This is a large and stressful undertaking, but Jean does it because he cares that much for the children and families in our community. Jean D. Herrera is a wonderful man who deserves to be honored for the contribution he makes each and every day.
I am a deputy probation officer. Thank you both.
Hal and Janice Dillashaw. Hal and Janice have donated countless hours to the Bret Harte Wrestling program. They coach, organize fundraisers, organize wrestling tournaments, create gifts for the wrestlers, cook dinners, cheer loudly, and stay positive for the wrestlers. It is not uncommon to see Hal drive at the gym after an athletic event to set up for the next day, or to see Janice selling items to raise money for the wrestling program. They consistently give without asking for anything in return and have done so for many years. Mary Lears. Mary is a great mom and grandmother. She does not judge, she gives with a kind heart, and she has faith in others even when they do not have faith in themselves. The woman who nominated Mary said, "Through my active addiction to drugs, Mary cared for me and my children when I could not. I've been in NA for 7 months, and she's been supportive and a positive influence in my recovery. She's a blessing to have in one's life, and I cannot imagine my life or my children's without her." And District 5, LaDonna Elizabeth Burns, Samantha Hamilton, S.B. Jimenez, Carmen Oliveira, and Mike and Joanne Schwinghammer. Yeah, go on. First, we have LaDonna Cooterer. Is that correct? Dave and LaDonna. LaDonna and her husband Dave have touched the lives of numerous children in Calaveras County through their Passion Top Hat Studio. Never missing an opportunity for children to shine, they showcase the talents of the children with numerous dance competitions and holiday shows, providing the students with love, discipline, family bonding, leadership, and responsibility for one's own actions. LaDonna and Dave, in the company of children, are the true nuggets of treasure here in the foothills of Calaveras County. No, sorry. Next, we have Elizabeth Burns. Elizabeth has been a 4-H leader in Calaveras County for 7 years and co-leader of one of the largest clubs in our county, the Jenny Lind 4-H Club. Elizabeth has served as treasurer and vice president of the Calaveras 4-H Council. She served on several committees, including the 4-H Council Audit, 4-H Records Book Advisory Committee, 4-H Record Book Judging Team, 4-H Scholarship Selection Committee, and she's the past 4-H All-Star Advisor and has helped judge numerous times at 4-H events. Her commitment to volunteerism, our community, and children is an inspiration to all. Thank you. Samantha Hamilton? No? Okay. Sam began her relationship with Mountain Oaks School 12 years ago when she enrolled her kindergartner in the homeschooling program. Within a few years, she applied for the receptionist position and is now the hub, heartbeat, and main go-to person for all operations at Mountain Ranch. She organizes, coaches, and volunteers for countless committees, sports, and activities. Sam has provided an essential link between the adult and teen world and the school's community and has made an outstanding contribution in the lives of all children that she's touched. Next, we have Esperanza, or SB. Through Esperanza's efforts and dedication as a foster parent, there are over 30 young people back in the real world who've had the opportunity to become productive and leading members of society. Esperanza lives her life on standby, waiting to protect, nurture, heal when the situation gets rough. It is her care, support, and above all, her love for these children that signify her extraordinary leadership skills. Carmen Oliverieta. Carmen works in the Valley Springs area for the Calaveras County School District. She's a huge help to the Spanish community, connecting Latino families to the resources they require and always going above and beyond to make sure that they have the help that they need. Carmen's friend said, just 5 years ago, Carmen's Spanish was so-so, but now her Spanish has improved so much that everyone knows that Carmen will go that extra mile to help the Latino families no matter what. And last, we have Mike and Joanne Schwinghammer. They were not able to make it today. Mike and Joanne both serve on the Valley Springs Youth Board of Directors. They work to provide a safe and nurturing alternative during after-school hours, giving the kids a place where they can be heard, valued, and validated. Mike and Joanne also do volunteer work for the Calaveras High School Boosters, the 4-H program, and the San Andreas Teen Center. They are tireless cheerleaders and mentors for our youth, always encouraging others to strive to be their best. Sure, if we can get the group together. Most of them go outside.
Before you go outside, I'd like to say a thing or two. It takes a lot of different programs and a lot of different individuals rising to the occasion when our kids are in trouble or challenged. And your program, and I wanted to just because you haven't received any awards today, I was hoping that we all, before you all go take your group picture out there, recognize that although we're doing individual recognitions here, there's also a group effort that has taken place throughout this county to support our kids and to make sure this is a safe and healthy place to live. And if Tammy and Arlene could please come up front here for just a moment, I would ask the rest of the group to rise with me and give them the appropriate ovation that they have. We're going to take a 5-minute recess so Marita can go hug a baby and people can do whatever they need to do. So we'll reconvene at 5 after 10. We'd like to call the board members back to their seats. I'd like to call the board members back to their chairs. Back in session, we now move to item 15, discussion and possible action on a resolution declaring April 7th to 11th this year as Public Health Week in Calaveras County.
Good morning, Jeannie Boyce, Director,
Jeannie Boyce.
Director of the Calaveras County Health Services Agency. We're here this week to talk about Public Health Week nationwide. Public Health Week is being celebrated, and we join you and ask you to join us in celebrating the achievements of public health. And public health is really about improving the health status of individuals and communities. And I'd like to start off by recognizing the public health staff who are here today, who often are behind the scenes and you don't know their faces, but these are the folks who do the work on behalf of the community. And if I could ask the public health staff to rise. We are very
Nice T-shirt.
Oh, well, we'll get to the T-shirts. We're very fortunate to have Colleen Tracy, who is a public health professional, I won't say for how many years, but she has been with Calaveras County for 4 years, and we are very lucky to have Colleen directing the public health staff. And Dr. Kaleda, who is a private physician, but also our county health officer, who cares deeply about the health of our community. And we applaud both Dr. Kaleda and Colleen's leadership in public health. We are going to talk to you today. We want to thank our youth, our children, our parents, our grandparents, and community members for joining us. We did a little bit something different this year. We have a student poster contest that staff will talk to you about next. We have a community walk coming up this Friday. And then lastly, we would like you to declare by proclamation and resolution Public Health Week's April 7th to 11th. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Kaleda, and he is going to talk to you a little bit about health status.
Aren't you going to ask this board for a commitment to participate in the walk and get healthy themselves?
Absolutely.
Oh, well.
And I will let the good doctor talk to you about that.
All right. Thank you, Jeannie. As Jeannie Boyce said, this is Public Health Week, the first week in April, traditionally April 7th through the 11th. Traditionally, Public Health Week focuses on a particular theme, and the theme this year is Healthy Persons and Healthy Communities as part of the National Healthy People's 2010 project. So the Health Department is supporting 3 major activities for Public Health Week this year. There's the student poster contest that I'm going to tell you about. There's the Move Your Feet After You Eat community walk, which is going to be on Friday, and I'll give you some more information about that. And then we're asking the board adopt the resolution that declares this week Public Health Week. So about the student public health, or the student poster contest, 3rd and 4th grade students in 6 local elementary schools took part in a poster contest, and the topic was what public health meant to them. The public health education staff went into the classroom and gave them some information and a presentation on what public health is. And the students were asked to depict through drawing what public health meant to them, sort of revolving around the 3 P's of public health, which is prevention, promotion, and protection. And our hope was in kind of instilling these ideas in children at an early age. They could adopt those concepts as they grow up and hopefully incorporate them into healthy lifestyles. Now, the students with the winning designs from each school were chosen, and there was an overall winner as well. The overall winner's picture was put on the back of the T-shirts, which everybody's wearing here today. And the T-shirts, by the way, were purchased by the staff at our own expense. Just so you know that no public funds went into this. And so that's what's on the back of our shirts. And so what I would like to do is to just call the names of the children individually by their school and present them with a certificate acknowledging their contribution to our project. The overall winner is Dylan Bird from the McCollum Hill Elementary School. So go ahead and stand up, Dylan. So what we'll do is we'll collect the pictures and then we'll kind of, give them to you. And we've matted them on a poster board, and then you can kind of pass them along as we go. So good job, Dylan. And again, his picture is the one that's on the back of our shirts. There is Grace Norwood from McCollum Hill Elementary School also. Good job. Okay, and Twyla Smith from Railroad Flat Elementary School. Katie Castillo from San Andreas Elementary. And the proud principal, Ed Collette, I saw in the back of the room from San Andreas Elementary. From West Point Elementary School, Elizabeth Brandt. From Jenny Lind Elementary is Michaela Diana Rose Hoyopotabe. Okay. And I don't think Jessica's able to be here. Jessica Craig is from Copperopolis Elementary. And one of the goals of our health education program is to get into the schools more and, like I said, incorporate some of these ideas of what it is to be healthy and adopt a healthy lifestyle early in childhood. Okay, the second activity for Public Health Week this year is what we've called the Move Your Feet After You Eat Community Walk. And as most of us know, scientific studies have shown that incorporation of regular exercise into one's routine, 30 minutes, 5 days a week, has been shown to reduce the incidence of chronic disease, control weight, and add to a sense of well-being as far as maintaining health goes. So one of the reasons that people cite as not being able to exercise regularly is lack of time and a safe environment to exercise in. And so what we wanted to do as part of Public Health Week this week with our community walk is to show that exercise can be incorporated into your daily routine. Right here at the Government Center, there's a trail, and it's a safe and convenient walking trail. Can be used by employees on their lunch hour. And so together with Mark Twain St. Joseph's Hospital, we're sponsoring this walk on Friday, April 11th from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. County employees, hospital staff, community agencies are invited to bring a lunch to the quad and participate in our walk. And there'll be some water donated by the hospital along the route, and there'll be volunteers to kind of show the way and provide some support. And our goal with the walk, again, is to show that you can incorporate 30 minutes of regular activity into your routine and thereby do yourself much more good than prescription medication or other, more technical, medical interventions by incorporating regular activity as part of a healthy lifestyle. And then our third activity this year for Public Health Week is, again, asking your adoption of the resolution that declares April 7th through the 11th, 2008, Public Health Week in Calaveras County. So any particular questions we'll be happy to entertain.
I have a question.
Yes.
I know that these are prized here, but I was wondering whether you would do us the honor of being allowed to post these in the boardroom for this period of time.
Yeah, well, you may. And we also are going to have them on display at the health department this week as well. Okay. Are they the same ones, Colleen? Are they?
Those can be posted in the board, and then their eventual destination is to be posted in the health department.
Okay, and it's part of Public Health Week, and we encourage, the public and community members to come into the health department and see our display as well.
All right. Well, work that out with the clerk if you can, but we'd certainly like to be part of that. As
Jeannie Boyce mentioned, I'd also like to acknowledge the public health staff, very professional staff coming from private medical practice. I'm always very impressed on the level of dedication of the public health staff here in the public workforce.
In it for love.
Very much so. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Thanks.
Thanks, Doctor.
Well, I guess if Dr. Kay wants and Jeannie wants and the staff wants, I'll move the resolution.
Do I hear a second? Second. Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously, and congratulations to all of you for your hard work and dedication. We'll wait just a moment for the room to empty, and then we'll tell everybody what we're doing this week. Tell nobody.
I ran out of letterhead, so I wrote it and sent it to Madeline to print on the letterhead. So, yeah. This is a driveway issue.
What?
I can read this. Well, have you read the letter?
The attorney?
Yeah.
This is it.
Well, this is my response.
It sounded bad till the last paragraph or so. You have to get down right in there about someone. Just do it without doing it.
Okay, we're now ready to move to item 16, review of correspondence, reports, and various matters of concern. We'll start with Supervisor Tryon.
We were invited by the Angel City Council to join them this afternoon, commencing at 3, I think. They're going to have a discussion on, I guess, a large volume retail outlets at the I want to say City Hall, but it'll be at the fire station there in Angels, and we have a 2:30, so upon completion of the 2:30, I will join the City Council for that discussion. Other than that, it's mostly candidates' nights and other types of forums for the week. So that completes my report.
Thank you, Tom. Russ?
Okay, if we get out of here in time, I'd like to go over to that meeting at Angel City Hall as well today. There's a, tomorrow morning, I'm going to be going to the CCWD meeting to request some assistance on some irrigation projects in Copperopolis. Then I'll be going with Marita to the jail committee meeting at the boat barn. Then that's on tomorrow. On Thursday, it appears that there's an Angels Camp branding program. It's something to do with their economic stimulus program over there. I think I'm going to be able to stop into that too. Lastly, on Friday, there's a Mountain County's Water Resources meeting that I'm representing the Calaveras Board on that agency, and that'll be at it's a restaurant over in Tuolumne County in Sonora. So that's all for this week.
Thank you. Marita?
The jail meeting that Russ talked about, excuse me, debt advisory. I will do the walk, but for a short time. I'm not sure that that's Mountain Counties. It has to do with Mountain Counties for the state water plan, not Mountain Counties agency.
No, it is the regular meeting of the Mountain Counties.
Oh, I have it down as part of the for the water state
For the
water
state water plan.
Not for Mountain, not the group that you represent the board on. Anyway, whatever. I'm going to be there too because I'm on the state water plan, and I will be at the Follies Saturday night and a 4-H judge on Saturday. That's all.
Bill?
Let's see. There's a Mountain Valley Emergency Medical Services board meeting on Wednesday in Amador County at 10 a.m. Also on Saturday at noon or thereabouts, there's a court of honor for 2 young scouts that have achieved the rank of Eagle Scouts. So I'll be presenting the resolutions that we approved today at the Valley Springs Vet Hall. That's it.
I have a Glencoe Community Plan meeting tonight, a West Point community meeting on the fire district situation on Wednesday, Mount Ranch community planning meeting on Thursday, and I will be doing the long walk after lunch, after eating, on Friday. And that completes my report, except that I did go to Washington, D.C. to talk with representatives of Feinstein, Foxer, and Lundgren's staff, as well as meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers. And I won't bore you with lengthy details, but Under Sheriff Walker and I will be reporting to the CAO upon his return, and we would like to bring a number of matters to the attention of the board pertaining to that visit. We were treated well, and we had good amounts of time in each office. And there is some news on various projects of concern to each of you, so we'll try to do that in a more formal and detailed way next week. Any items from administration?
Just as Supervisor Callaway mentioned, we have a debt advisory committee this Friday.
All right. And I believe we have a third quarter report coming in for next week, is it?
On the 22nd.
On the 22nd.
I believe Bob mentioned to you about...
We're thinking of moving, yes, we talked about that, and given current circumstances, the flexibility was requested. So we were originally doing it this Tuesday. We will now do it the following Tuesday, 2 weeks from today. All right. Carol? All right. In that case, this concludes our
We have a closed session
board.
today.
No, we canceled the closed session, so we have completed in record time our Board of Supervisors meeting. We have this afternoon at 1:30 a study session on the food and I guess it's Area 12 and our common ground discussion, and at 2:30 we have a discussion of a few proposals from the Ag Department. I would ask that people read the Ag stuff so that we can be ready.
We did read it.
Okay.
Steve.
Well, but be ready for moving that item in a timely way so that Tom and a couple of us might be able to get to the Angels Camp meeting as close to 3 as possible. This concludes our meeting. Meeting is adjourned. Okay, we're ready to commence our study session on Common Ground, Senior Services, and Area 12 Agency on Aging. Welcome, and would you like to introduce yourselves?
I'm Linda Zoff, the Executive Director of the Area 12 Agency on Aging.
And I'm Elizabeth Thompson, the Executive Director with Common Ground Senior Services. And this is Susan Tigner, who is my board chair, who doesn't want to sit up here, but she's on the president of the board.
A wise move on your part, no doubt. All right, and for the record, we have the record. All right, would you like to kick it off with an opening statement?
Well, I would. I want to be sure that there's an understanding regarding how we are as separate agencies. I know that we, as aging services, all together, the Senior Center, Common Ground, and Area 12 come to you for funding. What I'd like you to understand is that there are no duplication of services here. The law does not allow us to do that. We fund Elizabeth, or Common Ground, excuse me, for 3 programs. For the one that we are discussing today is that's nutrition, and it's only part of the nutrition program in Calaveras County. She also provides congregate sites and restaurants. But what she's looking for, as you probably know, the cost for food and a lot of other things, anything related to oil and its byproducts, whether it's gasoline or plastic, is going up dramatically. The agency does not provide meals. At one point, we did in Calaveras County do that at the Senior Center. We do not fund any services at the Senior Center. We do provide some counseling through one of our direct programs. We have a number of direct programs, some of which you have brochures in front of you, and those are completely separate from Common Ground, and we come to you for 2 things. Money that's required by the Older Americans Act and Title 22, and we have also asked this year for additional funding for the direct services that we provide in your county. The agency contracts with a number of providers. In Calaveras County, it's Common Ground for nutrition, chore, homemaker, and transportation. The California Department of Aging requires that we do a number of things with our nutrition providers. One is health and safety. We do quarterly checks of kitchens and all the sites and the meal routes We have someone directly from our office that comes out and does that. There is a monitoring that's done that checks both the accuracy of their reporting, that's the units of service, and the demographics that the state and the federal government require us to collect. And we also verify that expenses are allowable under the grant. And for home delivered meals, it's, of course, 60 and older. We do occasionally provide meals under certain circumstances for people who are under 60 if they qualify under the Older Americans Act. If an example of that would be the spouse of a senior who is under 60. They would qualify for a home delivered meal under certain circumstances. The agency also provides directly for the nutrition program 3 things: technical services, from how to write up your donation requests to how to run the data collection system, nutrition education, which the state requires the providers to provide. We set that up quarterly, that's the minimum, and we run those and get them out to the providers at no cost. The registered dietitian is very costly. If every provider has to have a registered dietitian, it becomes pretty exorbitant. The dietitian approves all menus and changes to the menus to be sure that they meet the dietary requirements of the Older Americans Act. We have, as an agency, been given a waiver years ago, it's probably been 20 years, that allows us to hire one registered dietitian that covers all of our nutrition providers. And we keep that money in-house to pay her, and she has direct contact with the providers and the nutrition program director in our office. It's important that we all understand that we are not allowed to duplicate services. Shore and Homemaker, Elizabeth, Common Ground provides, and it's one of the reasons she went ahead and did that was that we were having a very difficult time finding providers or vendors in Calaveras County who were willing to go out and take care of in-home services, house cleaning, some of those things, or chore, which is basically heavy housework or outside, clearing fire clearances, stacking firewood for the winter, and those sorts of things. Elizabeth has a better handle on those sorts of services. If we can't get the services that we need under chore, homemaker, or chore or homemaker with Elizabeth, then we do try to vendor that out so that the client does get the service. Under the Older Americans Act, we cannot charge for services. If a client is low income, they are provided with the service. If they have the money to pay for the service, they are encouraged to make a donation. That is becoming an issue because everyone is tightening their belts. And that's definitely had an impact on the home delivered meal clients. Half of which, for Common Ground in Calaveras County, or close to half, 48, 49%, are classified as low income or poverty level. So they're being provided with a meal a day that they do not have to fund out of their Social Security or their assistance. Common Ground uses the Older Americans Act money for nutrition as seed money. That's the way it's written in the Act. The money is not mandated by the federal government, And of course, the state, if you don't, well, I'm sure you already know, they have made some severe cuts. Our agency took over $100,000 in cuts. The nutrition programs, which are vital, have taken serious cuts. We have taken money from other parts of our regular budget and put it into the nutrition program to maintain last year's funding. And that means that what services we provide in our office will be curtailed. Common Ground has options of, beyond the seed money, of fundraising and donations, applying for other grants, and going to the county for funding. And I know that she works very hard to do that. The grants are becoming smaller and smaller. And the other part of that equation is at the beginning of every year when Common Ground submits their budget, they cannot put anything in their budget that they don't already know they're going to get. So when we compare what Common Ground gets in your packet, further back, it's the last pages. When you look at, I'm sorry, these pages are not in order. And each of these years, the third line down will give you the fiscal year. And then, of course, the third column over gives you Calaveras County. One of the things that we talked about with Elizabeth a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things I really would like to emphasize here is that Common Ground runs the most efficient program for costs in the way of home delivered meals. The comparison for 06-07, Calaveras County, Elizabeth Common Ground is providing home delivered meals at $4.22. The closest to that is Amdor, which Common Ground also provides at $5.74. Mariposa, we probably want to pull out of the equation because their costs are tied to county wages and benefits. And that explains why their meal costs at $12.69 are so expensive. But in Tuolumne County, the provider there, even though they provide a significantly increased number of meals, is still providing their meals at $7.33. Okay, so 422, we provide, I'm looking at 06-07, it's on the back of this page.
In your packet, it's the very first page of attachment B.
Thank you. And the numbers are at the bottom. Total cash cost per meal, third column over Calaveras is 422, and then the number of meals she provided in Calaveras is 38,671. And you can see where all the costs are broken out. And you can look back and see the history of that.
That's just for home delivered, though.
I'm sorry.
That's just for home delivered?
Yes. The others, I believe, are here. I'm not sure.
They are. The way it was set up is the sheets that were provided for the home delivered meals are followed by the congregate meals, followed by the restaurant meals, and it's for multiple years, each page being a fiscal year.
One of the things that you are probably aware of just because you're living in Calaveras County. The current population in Calaveras County by the Department of Finance, the number of seniors, 60 and older is what they count, has gone up over $2,000, 2,000 people in the last year. There is a 30% calculation there. I'm looking at another sheet I have given to you. The population in Calaveras County for the Department of Finance is 46,658. For over 60, it's 14,230. That means that 30% of your population is...
That's the one we got it for.
Yes. Except this one is arranged just a little bit differently.
Okay. Do they, excuse me, but do they also determine a mean income for that population group?
A median income, no. What they do, what they are required to collect for the services that they provide, there's a screening assessment form, and on it is the poverty level, the federal poverty level. And in this particular case, Elizabeth is providing 50% of the unduplicated clients are low income.
According to those federal levels?
According to the federal guideline. And I believe, oh dear, it's under $1,000 a month.
Oh, okay.
For a single person. It's, if you have to pay rent, it's really, I don't see how anyone does it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't count their expenses for medications or food. Anyway, so I've given you those. When you take into consideration just the increase in the population and the percentage of the seniors that are over 60, I think it's important that we look at the funding that has been so stable over the last several years. With an increased population, there's no way to continue to provide services for people so that they can remain independent in their homes. And that'll be my last point, and then I'll be quiet. We have taken really serious looks at several programs, the home delivered meal program being one of them. The case management programs that we do directly in our office are the other two. Those programs are set up so that if a person is at risk of being placed in skilled nursing, and all of these clients are on, or the majority of these clients are on Medi-Cal, the biggest portion of them are already on Medi-Cal. If we can even purchase a lift chair to keep them in their homes with one of these programs, it saves the taxpayer a tremendous amount of money a month, even after you factor in the case management salaries and the other things that generally are factored in. I don't have that in my notes. The same thing really applies to home delivered meals, because if you have a single person alone whose income does not allow them to bring someone in to give them a hand with their cooking, they become very isolated. They don't eat properly. This has been, though I don't have the statistics with me, a lot of these things have been researched. If they're not eating properly, that alone puts them at risk for being hospitalized, for falls, and at some point you will have to pick up the bill. So if we can find the money for the meals, it makes a tremendous amount of difference for those who are isolated in their homes. And the money that goes to Elizabeth doesn't impact what we do, except that I'm here and Elizabeth runs a totally separate program from what we do. We'll be quiet.
I guess I'm not quite sure where to start, but you've gotten my, I guess I just want to clarify on this first page, this under the discussion, the second paragraph, it always, the word additional funding kind of always jumps out at me because we don't get any additional, we haven't gotten additional funding. I'm not quite sure what that means as far as how it pertains to this document, because Common Ground has not gotten any funding from Calaveras County until I've gone before the board and request funding at that point in time. There's nothing in their budget throughout this, all these years since 2003, since I've been running Calaveras County, where I have, where there's a line item in the county's budget for Common Ground. So additional funding to me, I'm not quite sure what that means there.
Why don't you clarify for us what it is you're asking for? My understanding is that you're asking for $15,000, which would be the same funding that you received in the last fiscal year, carried forward to this next fiscal year, plus an additional amount. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
When I came before the board last fiscal year, it was, monies were taken out of contingencies because there was no funding in the budget for Common Ground.
And we allocated $15,000 from contingencies to accomplish that. Is that correct?
For that fiscal year.
Right.
The preliminary budget hearing, I came before the board and requested $15,000 as hopefully a line item in the county's budget. That was denied, and they came back in September, and that's when $15,000 was again allocated under contingencies. Right. So that's how I've been able to get funding from Calaveras County, is by approaching the board at general meetings and asking for funding. We are not a...
So you had no base funding, so this is not additional because there's nothing to add to.
No.
It's the same that we've been spending, but you're saying you'd like to see it stabilized in some kind of line item from the county.
Yes, that's what I'd like to see.
Is it correct that the other counties that are party to this are doing that through line items, or how's that handled?
Amador County does have, since I've taken over the program, I've never had to go before then for the last 7 years, has funded me $15,000 as a line item. I do know that Tuolumne County just recently went before their board and got another $60,000 in CDBG grant for next fiscal year. So I know that's all happening, and then of course Mariposa is their own county provider. So that's kind of where I'm seeing that, you know, Linda's programs or Linda Area Agency and Common Ground are two separate entities. And yes, the county funds the area agencies for the programs that they administer, which is part of the programs that we do, but we are two separate entities, and the funding is not exactly, you know, whatever monies is given for it is not, doesn't come down to us. The monies that come down to us are the federal funds that they administer, not the match or whatever it is that you give them. So I just kind of really want to clarify that. And yes, as far as the $15,000, there has been no stable or base funding for Common Ground in all the years that we've done this program, and that's really what I'm seeking for the next few years. Not to say that that's going to be sufficient dollars, but at least something so that I can put on my budget every single year that I can guarantee I'm getting $15,000. Otherwise, you know, I'll have to make more cuts somewhere, and I don't want to do that. As of when I did submit my letter, which you probably all got because we're having this meeting, as of April 1st, we have gone to frozen meals in Calaveras County. So the entire Calaveras County is on a frozen meal delivery route. I have contacted a lot of people myself, and my staff has contacted, and though some of them are not real thrilled about it, they are very understanding and are okay with it. I think out of the 70-plus people that we contacted, there was 12 that have just no desire for the frozen meals. A lot of these people were also getting frozen meals for the weekends, so a lot of them were familiar with the frozen meals. The feedback I was getting from them was more that they miss the drivers. You know, they do have that socialization with the drivers, even if it's only for a minute or two. It's somebody there daily to see them, to talk to them, and hand them their meals. So that is the biggest impact I'm finding as far as the seniors and what they're really missing. Not so much the meals. The meals is important as far as their daily requirements and stuff like that, but the socialization is a big impact. But they are very understanding. So I actually don't feel, I try not to take on this thing all by myself, because I get really emotional about stuff like this, and I try to keep the emotions out of it. But I feel a lot better about the seniors that are on frozen meals today, given the dilemma that we're in as far as funding and what we're looking at for the future, for future funding and stuff like that. So it has been implemented. Murphy's, Arnold, we go up to Chapel Pines on Tuesdays for the congregate meals. The same driver who's been going up there on Tuesday delivers the frozen meals at an Arnold, and then catches all of the Murphy's people on the way back down. So we're not adding in more staff. If anything else, we cut 2 staff people, and he will catch all those people. The person going to Cockropolis on Wednesdays for the congregate site is now delivering all of Angels Camp on that same day. So that's on Wednesday. On Tuesday and then Wednesday, and then Mondays, Railroad Flat. There's a route up to Railroad Flat. I think there's like 12 people up there. We have to break it between Railroad Flat and West Point because it's gotten so big. The Railroad Flat has about 11, and then that driver picks up some of San Andreas, and then also the Wednesday driver picks up some of San Andreas. So it's kind of broken up that way. There's no deliveries on Thursdays, and then on Friday it's strictly West Point, and we have a lot of people up there. So that's kind of how basically the way the route is running right now. And this is our 2nd week, and it's running actually very, very smoothly. A lot of, not too many people, except for those 12, who did just want frozen meals because they didn't want frozen meals. When we do assess these people, we ascertain their needs, whether they need how they're going to cook it, if they're able to cook them. A lot of them, the ones that we feel are has in-home supportive services already with them, so they're taken care of. There was a couple people that we were really concerned about, and we have made a report to APS, and they're probably already in their system anyway. So they're on the lookout to their needs, because they're not wanting frozen meals, yet they kind of do need them. But APS has them already in their files. And so basically, as of April 1st, everything is going really smoothly. And because of the changes, I kind of did a comparison of home delivered meals by fiscal years, and that kind of tells you where we've grown from 2003 to 2007, and actually 2006 to 2007, we get 38,000 meals, and we do contracts for less this year. Well, who knows what it's going to be this year. We haven't quite figured out those numbers for next fiscal year. But the need is still growing, and the funds are stable, and the costs are higher, and it's just a whole rat race here. The reimbursement rate from our seniors has gone up a little bit. It went from 65 cents to 71 cents for this fiscal year. So, I'm not quite sure what it is that, because I have implemented the changes for this fiscal year, I'm probably going to keep the same with the contract extension. I'm going to keep the same way we're doing it for next fiscal year. By doing that, cutting the hot meals in San Andreas, Angels Camp, and Murphy's, we have cut our costs drastically, and that's because the meals are made in Jackson, and we have this brand new hot shop truck that works wonderful. However, it's costly when you're running a brand new truck and the fuel to travel from Jackson to Murphy's and back every single day. So there's going to be a tremendous cut. It's kind of hard to tell right now. I won't know exactly where we're going to be at until the end of April, because this is the first month doing it, basically. And then as far as, well, cost, I guess you all kind of know what the costs are. And I have it written down here. But then again, if you look at areas, you know, like Linda mentioned, I have here statistics on the poverty status and by areas. There's two sides, one for the whole fiscal year and then the other side for just the month of March, which we just finished providing for. The greatest poverty areas are in the West Point, Rural Flat area, and that's where the highest growth in meals being provided is happening, is in that area. Now, with a donation rate, you know, at $3 per meal, we're getting 71 cents reimbursement rate for the entire program. With the frozen meals, I don't know if we're going to be getting that same amount. I hope so. We're going to definitely continue to urge people to continue to make their donations to the program, but I don't know. I'm hoping it's not going to go down just because it's frozen meals instead of hot meals, which, you know, if I were paying it, it probably would go down, but I don't know. Basically, that's going, and for next fiscal year, what I'm anticipating that the cost is going to be, and this is just a huge projection because we're not even quite sure of what numbers we have with the area agency, what we're going to be contracting for. I just know that at the end of this fiscal year, we'll probably be close to 41.5, maybe even 42,000 meals, and we're only contracted for 37,680, I believe, for this year. We'll probably do 42. You know, as long as by going these frozen routes, I can see that we can possibly do up to the 42,000 meals. I'm hoping. That's my hopes. It's just my hopes. I'm going to definitely watch it real closely because I can't go over budget. We don't have the funds to do that. But for next fiscal year, we're probably going to be in the same thing where we probably won't be able to contract for more than 37,000 meals, and the need is again at the 42,000 meal level. So what I'm really requesting from the Board of Supervisors is that we have a base funding in the county budget for Common Ground Senior Services for its home delivered meals program only, of at least a minimum of $15,000. And you won't have to see my pretty face every single year.
You can still come and see us.
What's that?
You may still come to see us.
I want to come and see you and report nice stuff about what's happening with the program, not to ask for money. You know, we do the congregate programs, and even the congregate programs on the 2 pages over, there's a deficit. There's a deficit right now of each of these meal programs. Match cash required, $2,642. I'm not asking for the $2,600 for the congregate sites. I'm not asking for the $1,800 in the restaurant sites. We're doing fundraising all the time in order to bring some of these funds in so that we can provide our own services. What I'm really looking for is just the home delivered meals program, because that's where I can't really get the funding for. There's only 2 full-time persons in my staff, myself and my administrative assistant, and everybody else is part-time. We just don't have the monies to even hire somebody to go do fundraising activities for us, and let alone staff to do fundraising activities. You know, I am the fiscal officer, I'm the program manager, and the executive director, and we just can't do it. We do the best we can. We have 2 fundraisers coming up before the end of this fiscal year, and hopefully that's going to help with our deficit in the other programs too. So, unless you have any more questions for me, I'll be quiet.
All right, thank you very much. Questions from the board?
Elizabeth, as I understand, what you're saying is really you don't need the extra $15,000 now, but you would like it just to become a line item when we do our budget this summer.
I would like to see that for the next fiscal year. As for this fiscal year, the implementation has taken place, and I feel very strongly that with what we've done, we can break even.
Now, is that breaking even on the 36,000 or the 41 to 2?
Well, the way when I wrote the letter, it was based on the current method of delivery, and because the method of delivery has changed, it really impacted our costs.
Okay.
So
you'd be able to fully serve at the lesser service level of frozen foods?
Yes.
Okay.
For next fiscal year.
So,
go ahead.
Okay, just a couple of questions, Elizabeth. First of all, I'm curious about just one statistic here, the comparison of home-delivered meals program by fiscal year. In the first report there, we have home-delivered meals contracted with Area 12 on Aging. I'm only curious, there's about a 30% bump between 2005-06 and 2006-07. If I'm understanding correctly, you went from 27,000 to 38,000. Is there a reason that was so?
You know, that was a very good year. The area agency had money.
Oh yeah, no other year has that. I mean, then it stabilized again, but it's like it was stable and it went wow, and then stable again.
I'm not quite sure what happened. Maybe Linda can answer that question, why there was more funds for 06, 07 from the year before.
There are a couple of things that happen in the office, some of which have been traditional for much longer than I've been director. It's very possible, if we go back and look at that the traditional determination of funding was done when we did the 08-09 budget. I discovered that when a provider indicated that they were going to be doing more meals, we were automatically filling that in with money from other programs. And I can tell you that nutrition can be a program that will just totally eat you up.
Unintended, I know.
Oh, right, sorry.
Okay.
It's just, there is such a huge demand for it. There are ways to control it. Elizabeth has done one of them. We have talked, I believe Marita, who has been on our board for quite some time, has listened to us discuss waiting lists. The providers have fought tooth and toenail not to go to waiting lists. There are two things that happen there. One is that it's more work. But the other thing is that you may have someone that you've been serving who is home alone only during the day, and they're living with family at night and their meals are provided. They may need a home-delivered meal, but the waiting list criteria may eliminate them from receiving home-delivered meals if there's someone else who is more needy. The program's really, the Older Americans Act is really not set up to do that. Plus, you run into a lot of family dynamics and cultural issues when you start eliminating people who are just in that particular situation.
So, Linda, you're saying that the drastic increase in the number of meals is because you had additional funding and could do that, or is it just a request for that?
Well, the other half of that picture is this. All of the providers that do nutrition up until this year, 08-09, have continually increased. They have provided meals for people who've requested them, regardless of whether they have the funding. When we set up the contracts for the following year, we take what they did the previous year, and then we go back and we find the money someplace else in our budget. And that we have discussed with the providers. We are not going to be doing that anymore. If people need meals and there is no money, the waiting list will have to be instituted. Okay. But when you're looking at the number of seniors within your own community. And the idea that you indicated, people are retiring here across the Mother Lode. The increase in eligible seniors for Older Americans Act services is going to be tremendous. It's an egg laying on its side. The big end, we're there. You're already seeing it in your population growth.
Mm-hmm.
And people are living longer. The 85 and older group, there are more and more of those. And they're the ones that we'll be targeting.
I think
There was also one other thing in answer to Bill's question. We had a report on this before the board about a year ago. The initiation of the community service centers, particularly the West Point Railroad Flat one, actually was the beginning of that spike for that area, and that apparently was the majority of that increase.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to say. The West Point Railroad Flat area just grew tremendously with the community centers that was implemented.
Thank you. Okay, I have just a couple of comments and move on in the interest of time. But first of all, I think you've done a really great job with bringing efficiencies to the operation, with the idea that frozen meals are better than no meals, and making that move. And I see your explanation here makes a lot of sense to me. The hot meals are much more perishable, in not only that they cool off and are no longer hot meals, but after a period of time they're no longer nutritious. And so that's a very good point to make. And I think the old saying is bad breath's better than no breath. So a frozen meal is a lot better than having no meal. And so the more the what? It wasn't a personal.
It's another Billism.
Yeah, okay.
I have to write that down.
But I have to echo what Supervisor Tryon has said this more than once, and I have to agree with him. I wish that in the future, I realize that you don't have control over this, but I wish there was some sort of qualifier. I'm always afraid that, in other words, if I understand correctly, anybody can apply for this program to have a meal delivered.
Well,
is there no economic qualifier?
I wish I didn't even think about bringing you an intake form. There are criteria for home delivered meals. If you have someone who is able-bodied and driving, they are not going to get a home delivery.
Okay.
Okay.
So we couldn't.
I don't think there's any
You could.
I could, thanks. No, but I mean, that's my fear. I may not be making Tom's point for him, and I apologize for that, but it came to mind, and I'm sure he can expound on that much more than I can, but the idea that there may be some folks out there that are getting this benefit in place because it's an option for them, and maybe preventing somebody for whom it's not an option. And that's always a concern when you're dealing with this poverty level, my concern anyway.
There is a list of criteria.
Okay.
And that assessment initially is done. They are checked quarterly after that by phone and in person. Mm-hmm. And then they are reassessed annually if they're actually on the program that long.
Okay. And that's fine. I agree with the under the topic of fiscal impact. There's several suggestions here for the future with community development block grants and even perhaps the revision to the current reuse plan. Our assistant CAO Shirley said the last time we did this it took 2 years. But you know what? If we take a look at that now, maybe in 2 years, that's a possibility. So I am very much in favor of looking at all these other options. Even Supervisor Walensky and I were talking at lunch about there may be this year, there's 1 year, maybe a little excess money in the Calaveras Mariposa Community Action Agency budget because there just happened to be a little bit of money there. We'd have to take that to the board, of course, but there are always things to look forward to. So I'm very much in favor of looking into all of these and any others that come up, ideas that are listed here under your fiscal impact. And I can't get my mind around the idea that there would be somebody out there who could not afford a meal and couldn't get one. It's just unacceptable. So for me, I look forward to seeing you at budget time.
Other comments?
Well, I would agree with Linda and Elizabeth. I'd like to see this as a line item so it doesn't come back. I mean, if we can do it for some of the community groups, then I think we should at least be able to do it for the food program. But that's going to be a decision made at budget time. Plus, I also need to let the board know that the cash match for Area 12 will be going up $16,000, assuming the board approves it at budget time. So we spent a lot of time at Area 12 at our meeting last week, making sure Linda danced on coals before we brought it back. We would bring it back to the board. So what we're seeing is real cuts in the programs for those people that need it the most. I agree with Bill. So I think the issue really is an additional $15,000 now is not needed, if I understood Elizabeth correctly, but that when we do budget in May or June, that we consider making that a permanent line item. Now, with the knowledge that permanent is
established is a better word, maybe.
It's only as good as whatever the board does approve at that time, but that common ground doesn't have to come back and justify it. And the board can just make that budget decision at preliminary budget. So I really appreciate the work that both of you do in your respective agencies.
Other comments?
I guess I'll give mine. If we're able to do it, I would like to take the money from the Community Development Block Grant. I'd much rather do that than take it from the general fund, if that's available to us.
And that would be, we would look at that next year. We both have our regular allocation that we can look to take it from, as well as looking at the reuse plan. But when we look at the reuse plan, we have to open up the whole plan, and that was why, and the state looks at all the components. That's why it took so long. But we will delve deeper into the most expedient way to make that happen.
The reuse would be a year from this coming year, actually, is how long that takes to turn around.
That would be 09, 010.
Yes, right. That's correct.
Secondly, I just have a question. When you do your recommended contributions, for lack of a better term, billing, do you put it in the mail now and send it to the address
No,
for the individual, or are you still leaving just an envelope on the table?
It's handled differently by each of the providers. It really is up to them. Part of the issue there, if you put it in the mail, is the additional cost. I believe the drivers deliver donation envelopes.
But the problem...
The criteria for requesting donations, the appearance of the request, is very scrutinized by the California Department of Aging, because the Older Americans Act requires that the donation statement, you've been provided this many meals, this is how much it costs.
Yeah, this is our recommended request for...
Right. If it looks like a bill, it's out of the question.
I still think you should do it and just make it not look like a bill. I mean, make it meet whatever the criteria is, because quite frankly, when people are in a situation that they're taking Meals on Wheels because they can't provide for themselves, then somebody else is taking care of their financial well-being. And that person may well not be the person, that's coming in and for 8 hours a day and and helping out, and so the envelope doesn't get to the person that's paying the bills. I mean, somebody's paying the electrical, somebody's paying, all the bills that come in.
You're talking about a third party.
Is
that what you're talking
Yeah, I mean, somebody's paying the bills, and it's not the lady that can't prepare her own meals. So if you will send something in the mail, then it gets to the person that's paying the bills. And most people, I think, if they have the money, are more than happy to pay the cost of having a meal brought to them once a week. But the problem is the envelope doesn't get to the person that's paying the bill.
Well, to a certain extent, I'm aware of that because my mother lived alone beyond probably when she should have lived alone. And even after she went into assisted living, she received mail there that she shouldn't have received there, and it would go past you and get buried in the magazine. I understand what you're saying. I think one of the issues is going to be just identifying the third party. If you send the mail to, if you just eliminate the whole cost issue, if you send the mail where the meal is being delivered, it's sort of.
Well, it either goes to a home address or it goes to a P.O. box.
Right.
Someone's picking up the mail and paying the bills. I mean, if they're on a Meals on Wheels program, the chances are they're not driving down and picking up the mail at the post office in Angels. Somebody else is doing that and paying the bills and keeping the lights on and keeping the TV running and keeping this stuff. And the key is to get that envelope to the person that's paying the bills. And often that is not somebody that's coming in for 8 hours a day or 4 hours a day or whatever to help the older individual prepare their meal or make the bed or do whatever sort of gets done. And so the problem to me, a lot of it is just matching the request with the person that actually pays the bill. And because most of the time those people would be more than happy to pay the request, it's just that they don't get the envelope.
I know that quite a few years ago, before I was even aware that this was an issue, that was looked into. We'll take another look at it.
I mean, I think that's the key, is to get the person that's paying the electric bill and the telephone bill and the TV bill, the cable bill, and all that has to get the envelope. And quite frankly, if you will get, I think, a much better response rather than every time you have a meal leaving an envelope and saying, please give me $3. Because most people don't want to write a check for $3, and they're not going to write a check every day for $3. What they want to do is get a monthly bill. And you pay the bills monthly, they write one check, and that takes care of the month. I remember my mom was on this, and they'd leave an envelope with every meal. I mean, it was like, I don't want to do this, and then we hired some help, and half the time, most of the time I never see the envelope. I mean, I'd come over in the evening and make
We're
up a
more
fire.
than happy to backtrack for you.
Well, I'm just telling you, if the problem is we don't have enough money, we should at least collect the money people are willing to pay.
Yeah.
I mean, we have an obligation to do that, it seems. And I don't think we're following through on our end of the bargain with that.
Well, I believe that envelopes are being left not daily any longer. I believe they're being done at longer intervals, but I do understand what you're saying. One of the things that there is a part of with the assessments is the education piece of how the program works with the donations. We'll look into the envelope in the mail.
Okay. It would be certainly good to get what's out there that wants to be willingly given, but that can't find the right party. Can't get to the right party. Okay, that's my annual spiel.
All right. I have a first-time spiel on this. I think we've hit the trifecta of challenges here. You've noted the demographics of this county, and so things are not going to get less in the way of need over the next decade or so. We have an economic situation that has got foreclosures and difficult economic circumstances. People on fixed incomes are feeling a squeeze, and that kind of collides with our demographics to make a double whammy. And the third thing is that this county has gotten, over the last 2 years, much better organized in our outreach. So we're actually finding people that we never had contact with before. We have 6 now, not just 1, but 6 community service centers, all of them getting up and running, and you're going to see no diminishing of need, even as your budget flatlines or declines. So we have, aside from, I certainly support putting this in our budget and at the $15,000 that you're requesting, but I don't think that ultimately takes care of what our coming challenges will look like. So I'd like to go over just a few suggestions. I know that this is not for board action, but things that I'd really like to see over the next year or so. First is that we seem to have natural partners, that is, people sharing the same constituencies, and I would think that would set up an economy of delivery of services if we were to get organized in this way. We have IHSS workers, about 220 some, going to virtually every one of these places. So finding a partnership in that regard might create certain efficiencies. Secondly, we have other CalWork eligibility programs through the service centers, and that's another point of contact that you could coordinate with. Thirdly, we have veterans outreach and a whole new approach to veteran services, which I think you'll find that a number of people that you're serving are veterans, and I would hope that there'd be some combination of that. And finally, we have this historic issue with our senior center, which has been involved in delivery of a lot of meals to seniors. And as you recall, we were once partners in that, and then there was, something that happened that we don't even remember now, but we still are structured based on whatever happened before that nobody can, well, some remember, but there's no point in it because everything has changed on your end as well as ours. So healing that and regaining that partnership would be another way to enhance our meals program in this county, and I would urge your agency to, and I know you've been working on this, but I'd like to see some product in that regard come home fairly soon, within the next year or so, because of the aforementioned demographics and economics. The CMCAA, Calaveras Mariposa Community Action Agency, has a poverty requirement. No money can go to things, so you would need to segregate your poverty statistics to be eligible for those funding opportunities. And this year does present a one-time possible assistance, and I would suggest that you contact the Community Action Agency, put in a request for funding shortly, because we'll be discussing this in approximately 2 months, and you will have had to get your wishes known. But make sure that you segregate your poverty stats in your request, so that you can know exactly how much of those dollars can be directly applied to people under the poverty line. Lastly, I think it may help for grant purposes to use the stable funding that you have in matches, and I know you've done a lot of that in the past, and I would hope if we were to put this as a regular line item, that we'd find ways to leverage that into grant matches, if at all possible. But would like to say that I support this program. I think it's absolutely vital. It makes a difference between health and serious problems. And my hope is that this will continue, not just in its current mode, but will enhance to meet need. And I wish you good luck in your endeavors, because it sure does make a lot of difference in my communities. And we should do everything we can to assure its continuation. Other comments?
I'm becoming more aware that I'm having a bad effect on the statistics as I get older. But, anyway, I support this, making this a permanent line item as well.
We'll be tested at budget time.
To the extent that we can.
I would appreciate it if you would allow me to return and at least speak to the issue of our increased wage. Like the is it Shirley that I'm contacting?
Yes,
Yeah.
Shirley is...
During budget time, Linda, I've already told Shirley what we're
Because
going to be.
We have requested a significant increase across all 5 of our counties, and we have a definite need, as all of the programs probably need to address.
All right. If I'm reading the board's wishes properly, I believe we're asking our budgeteer to include in the proposed budget a line item to also take a look at CDBG opportunities and give us a sense of the timing of that, and that we would also want, as a board, to encourage those partnerships, and if there's anything we can do on our end. But our CalWorks department is just a very dynamic operation at the moment, and I would strongly suggest you follow up from this meeting with a meeting with Mary Sawicki and others to see what we can do together.
Thank you.
Does that summarize? Yep. Thank you for your presentation, and it was great information in our packet. Thanks a lot. Okay, this study session is brought to a close, and we will now move to the Ag, and we will take a 3-minute recess, a 5-minute recess for biological purposes. Or something.
You have an infection?
Hey, I'm fine, thank you, Art. Study session regarding ag and various ordinances and reconciliations of language.
Okay, the purpose of the study session is to seek direction whether staff should bring an ordinance forward which will amend certain sections of Chapter 14, Agricultural Lands and Operations. I have a 2-part presentation. Part 1 deals with cleaning up definitions found in Chapter 14, and Part 2 has to do with the Agricultural Dispute Resolution Committee. So I'll start with Part 1, definitions. Chapter 14 has definitions of agricultural land and agricultural operations. Chapter 17, which is known as the new zoning code, also has definitions of agricultural land and agricultural operations. Now, Chapter 17 was revised in 2005. There was diligent work from all of the agricultural groups to put this code into effect, and it was a work that took more than 2.5 years to come to fruition. The definitions in Chapter 14 and Chapter 17 are not the same. In Chapter 14, the definition of agricultural land means real property within the unincorporated areas of Calaveras County currently used for agricultural operations or upon which agricultural operations may in the future be established. In Chapter 17, agricultural land means and includes all of those land areas of Calaveras County now used entirely or in part for agricultural operations, or on which agricultural operations may be established in the future in conformity with applicable zoning regulations. The differences between these two codes is not significant. But for cleanup purposes, staff recommends that Chapter 14 be amended so that the language of these two so that the language of the definitions in Chapter 14 is identical to Chapter 17.
Say that again.
The staff recommends that Chapter 14 be amended so that the definition in Chapter 14 is identical to Chapter 17.
The definition for agricultural land or agricultural operations?
It will be both, but I'd like to go into ag operations for about 35 seconds, if I may.
Okay.
Okay, Chapter 14, ag operations, means the use of land for the purpose of producing an ag commodity for commercial purposes.
Yes.
Please hear that, for commercial purposes.
Yes.
But not limited to cultivation and so on and so forth. Now, Chapter 17 says ag operation means the use of land for any of the following, whether or not for the purpose of producing income.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there is a significant difference in these two codes. One definition requires the agriculture to be for commercial purposes. The other definition does not require commercial production. And due to the work of the coalition over those few years,
staff recommends, again, amending Chapter 14 so that it is identical to Chapter 17, therefore eliminating the commercial production
Did the
requirement.
Ag Advisory Commission, is that their recommendation?
This will not affect Williamson Act.
Okay, so this is yours.
Yes, this is just for the code sections, not for any requirements of
Yes,
Williamson Act.
let me try to put it in another way. The Ag Coalition came forward with a set of zoning recommendations that is reflected in 17.
Correct.
And what this proposal is to make the unaddressed 14 be consistent with the changes that we made only 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
It's cleanup. It's a
is
cleanup
cleanup
effort,
language.
not anything new
We
in
didn't
relation
say
to
2
policy.
years ago that ag would be defined as non-commercial.
The
I mean,
committee,
if you
the
don't want to produce any
coalition,
income, what's agricultural about it?
the coalition worked on these code sections, and they did come up with the definition of ag operation. Exactly as it is stated in the code, means the use of land for any of the following, whether or not for the purpose of producing income.
Okay, the Ag Coalition, that was my question. You said, no, they didn't come.
I believe you asked if it was the Ag Advisory Committee, who was
okay,
advisory.
The Ag Coalition. Okay,
The Ag
excuse me.
Coalition is members of
the
Farm
four
Bureau,
ag organizations.
Right,
Calaveras
right,
Grown.
okay. This is their recommendation.
Yes, which was from 2 years
I
ago.
guess my concern with that, quite frankly, have we included this in other definitions outside of Chapter 14 and 17?
To my knowledge, it's not in any other section.
The problem I have is if you don't have agricultural operations for a commercial purpose, and you go with what you want, which is for the purpose of, whether or not for the purpose of producing income, including, land leveling and clearing, then anybody could go out and do all kinds of stuff and say, oh, well, it's sort of for an ag purpose. I don't plan on producing any income, but it's for an ag purpose. And it seems to me we're sort of leaving ourselves pretty wide open for what somebody can do on a parcel that really has no agricultural purpose whatsoever by just saying, well, it's for an ag purpose, and how do you know what it is if there's no income? I mean, if there's no income, if there's no commercial purpose, there's no income, then I worry about, person can kind of do anything, and then it falls under this definition, because there's no constraint anywhere. Is that not true?
Well, the codes were updated and adopted, and even there is even agricultural uses in the RA and RR zones.
Right.
And it just wasn't to promote ag in the county. It was felt not necessary to have a commercial income requirement.
As I recall, there were several different parts of this discussion. One was people keeping fields fallow for a period of time. Some of it was 4-H activity. Some of it was maybe ag activity that was producing a family farm where the purpose was not to sell but to feed themselves, a subsistence type operation. And so there were different things that people did not want to exclude from the definition of ag that seemed to be, at least for the Ag Coalition, and I don't want to speak for it, so if somebody else would like to come forward and outline the reasoning, but those were three things that I recall coming up during the course of the discussion.
Then why are they calling themselves ag? They're just
that's
big
sort of
farmers or master gardeners or 4-H leaders or...
This is growing stuff.
There's nothing, the definition goes on to be pretty describing agricultural activities, but there's nothing within agriculture that says you have to make money to be considered agriculture. When you look at all the other parcels in this county, mostly smaller parcels,
this
the
is
requirement of
17.
income seem to be, for them, the requirement to have a sale.
Okay, so you have an additional set of conditions here. Okay.
Would be, it seems, a burden, if you will, for someone to, say, raise chickens, have a garden, do the activities that are associated with agricultural activities. So one thing that's happening is that within agriculture in this county, we're starting to listen, or we're starting to realize that there are other people besides large ranchers. And Calaveras Grow, at least I think I told the board this before, has in the past, or currently, come forward and shown that there are many, many, many different types of activities out there that people are engaged in, some for commercial purposes and some not. And when we were writing the zoning code, this became apparent. In the old zoning code, to be considered agriculture, you had to have a commercial operation, income, sales, or you wouldn't fit under the agricultural definition. And so that's why the coalition and the board actually accepted this under Chapter 17. That's basically the reasoning behind it, because we did not tie the sales or income to agriculture. If Tom's concern is with the Williamson Act, that's a standalone.
That's not what's the Williamson Act. It's with basically somebody coming out and basically saying, I have a 20-acre parcel or a 5-acre parcel, and then, you know, doing a lot of grading and different things, and then basically saying it's for an ag purpose, so I don't have to meet the same standards.
That's not, you know, Tom, that's not true at all, because the grading ordinance, if that's your concern, we came forward and have included best management practices, which unfortunately or fortunately are actually more severe than some of the codes, the current code that was accepted. So I don't think there's nothing in here that where agriculture is trying to pull one over on the board. It's the recognition that to be involved in agriculture doesn't require commercial activity.
I think for the purposes of this study session, what we're asking is rather narrow. It's a question of whether we should try to make the part of our code that was inconsistent with the most recently revised aspects consistent. We're not trying to revisit something that we argued and settled 2 years ago. We're simply trying to reconcile consistent with our most recent revisions. So I'm hoping we might direct our attention to that and see where the board feels, how the board feels about it, and move to the second question on this. Are people okay with just
with what?
Moving down the line and seeing whether people want to make revisions to 14 that would make it consistent with 17?
That statement alone, I agree with. Okay, I don't have a problem with 14 and 17.
That's the only subject before.
Right now, that's all she's asking for.
Yeah, but then we go into the definitions, and that's where I need some clarification.
Well, making it consistent, they would come, we would be instructing them to come back with consistent language, at which time we would debate it.
But why can't we tell her today how we're feeling about certain things?
Well, that's acceptable, except that the differences are rather minimal between them, with the exception of the language on the practices, which is a very lengthy thing that I think satisfies I hope would satisfy Tom's concern. If you have separate concerns.
I have another concern.
Okay.
On 14 and 17 on definitions, on agricultural land. On 17, it says all of the land within the county, and 14 within the unincorporated area. How can we put that regulation on land that's in the incorporated area? Should not it be unincorporated? Ag land under 14, real property within the unincorporated area. 17 includes all of the land areas of the county.
Now used entirely or in part for ag operations.
My issue is...
Her issue is whether we're going into Angel's Camp or not.
Yeah, it's the county in total.
We have no authority.
Unincorporated.
Obviously, it only pertains to that over which we have jurisdiction.
Which is unincorporated,
Right.
which is...
That's correct. All right, so that's a cleanup piece of it as well. It's only, we have no authority over lands that are within the incorporated city of Angels Camp.
Okay.
So it should be just the unincorporated.
Eagle Eye has caught yet another.
So I am seeking direction whether to proceed with bringing forth an ordinance which will amend
Make it consistent.
Chapter 14.
All right,
As it relates to the
let's just
definitions.
poll the board on this. Russ?
Yes, I think
Marita?
we should.
If the question is for them to match, my answer is yes.
So to make the definition ag lands means and includes all those unincorporated land areas of Calaveras County.
That's those two. On the operations end, I still have questions, but I guess I can't ask them.
Yes, you can. I'm not trying to shut it down. I thought that question was answered, but yes.
I would have a question to the board. 2.5 or 3 years ago, the board adopted the languages in Chapter 17, those definitions. And Chapter 14 was not addressed. So there's 2 definitions of ag operations and 2 definitions of agricultural land. Is the board entertaining the thought of going back to Chapter 17 and reworking the definitions that they adopted?
Not this board member.
Well, as I understand it, what we're being asked to do, let me repeat my question so people understand it, but because we recently revised 17, and because we forgot to reconcile 14 to those changes, that the purpose of this study session was the staff requesting whether they should work on changes to 14 to make it consistent with 17. And that was what I was requesting the board to comment upon. And there may be differences on the board, but we should find out where those are.
Why don't we just abolish one of them? Why do we have 2 if they're going to say the same thing?
Would that be a question for county council? The definition is in 17.
They're in 2 different, I actually believe we need both, but they need to be consistent.
I just have to go back and read 14 and see what else it has in it. But I'm just trying to understand, that's all. I mean, the unincorporated versus all the land, that's easy. I guess, I'm really trying to understand commercial versus no commercial. Everything else in 17, I understand that. You can do this and you can do that. And so maybe I need to have my memory refreshed. Because 2 years ago, the issue for me was not this, was
golf,
rock concerts and all the parties. Okay, but...
anti-party. You haven't changed at all. You've just grown old.
All right, we're descending into the abyss now, but it's a very simple question before us, and I'm hoping we can
technically trying to understand why we would want it to say nothing about commercial. Because in 17 it says sale of livestock, sale of wine, commercial practices. I kind of heard what Bob said. I'm not sure I understood what Bob said.
You're doing better than we are, Bob.
I guess the question is, why would there have to be a commercial aspect tied to agriculture to make it legitimate?
Why would there not have to be a commercial?
Because there are probably dozens, if not hundreds, of operations, as Mr. Walensky pointed out, that have, when you get into the RR and RE situations, those aren't necessarily commercial operations. They're backyard operations, chickens and goats and maybe a milk cow or something to that effect, which would make it agriculture.
Horses.
There's no commercial aspect to it. And within the zoning code, as you probably will remember, is that we try to broaden it to include, to try to maintain the, as Mr. Tryon has said, the working landscape, the rural nature of the county. And if you limit the use of the term agriculture to just commercial, you immediately we saw that in coming up with it, with the input we received from the different agricultural groups.
So I guess I hear what you're saying and where I'm having trouble translating. I'm a computer geek. That's how I make my money. And I happen to have 20 acres of RA or RR, and I have some goats or chickens and some horses or what have you. Why am I ag versus why am I not just an RR or an RA that happen to have goats and chickens and a couple of horses?
Could I try to answer that?
Yeah.
I think that there certainly might be an occasional point in time when a problem might be created if we insist that we have the commercial aspect to be ag, but there would be hundreds and hundreds of times when it's very beneficial, and I think that this is what Bob is talking about, that to maintain the flavor of the community and to prevent disputes from neighbors to neighbors. If we don't leave the non-commercial wording, then if you're doing your 20 acres and you're raising chickens and I don't like chickens, then I could say, well, you're not an ag operation by the definition here. You got to sell your eggs to be a commercial or to be an ag operation. So get rid of your chickens. So I'm very much in favor of making it as broad as possible, and that's the way I feel about it.
So I have my 20 acres with my chickens, and I just call myself ag for the sake of calling myself ag because we're an ag county, and he wants to build his house next door to me, and because we're an ag county, so I don't have to get rid of my chickens?
That's an interesting scenario.
I mean,
Mary Jane talked about that a little later. I don't know why you'd have to get rid of your chickens if it would be a permitted use under the best management practices and under proper animal husbandry.
I'm not going to die on the sword on this. I'm really trying I'm trying to understand, because we've said that if you want to build a house next to an ag area, you got to know that there's pigs and goats and what have you. So all of a sudden now I can call myself ag, and too bad for him. And if this isn't in it, then I'm just an RR and RA with pigs and goats. Is that correct? And so then he can come.
You wouldn't have your pigs and goats under RR without this type of language.
Okay.
There was an attempt, heroic in fact, covering a 2.5-year effort to try to get some clarity as to what the right to farm, which we had committed both in rhetoric and code, and disclosure, but had no definitions about. And that's what this exercise 2.5 years ago was about. And again, we had differences at the time, as I recall, but we did manage to eke out a decision. And the only question before us right now is whether we are going to alter 14 to be consistent with that set of decisions that we made. That's really the limitation of what's before us as I read it.
And I do find it critical to I do find it critical to make these two definitions match, because in reality what just happened recently is there was a poultry problem and it went to court. And the judge referred to Chapter 14 saying that, well, you are not a commercial purpose. You're not selling your birds. And the landowners wanted to refer to Chapter 17, whether or not for the purpose of producing income, but they're producing their poultry. And so this really is what brought it to my attention, is this real-life case where the judge was reading Chapter 14 and not 17. And we do need some clarity here. We do need to make them match.
That's fine. I fold. I'm really just trying to technically understand it. That's all.
That's what the study session is about, and your questions are welcome. So,
And if you were, Marina, on your RR zone, if you were following acceptable farming practices, you would have the right to farm.
So if he builds his house, he can't complain about
That's
my
Exactly
grilled
right.
chicken.
As it
well,
should be.
he can complain that the practices are substandard or don't meet standard agricultural practices, which in fact in this case was part of the dispute. But why don't we try once again to see whether we can get the
Okay,
board
I
vote.
just was trying to understand. I don't want to be put down for trying to understand the difference. And
It's a fair.
I mean,
it's fair.
I know what parties are, but I couldn't tell.
All right, we're going to start with Russ again. Russ?
I think that the wording should be consistent in 14 and 17, and 14 should be changed to be identical to 17.
Marita?
I think 17 for ag land needs to be closer to 14 on unincorporated areas, and I accept 14 being changed to 17 for operations.
Hallelujah. You know,
I don't want to be accused
Mr.
of
Garamendi's right. We had this discussion for hour upon hour just 2 years ago.
It's fine. He doesn't.
You don't remember.
Bill,
Too many
is
parties.
your hallelujah indicative of your
Yes.
transcendent vote on this topic?
Yes.
All right. Tom?
I'm for going with Chapter 17. That's the most recent one we did, and I don't think this is worthy of opening it all up again.
All right, and I feel the same. I believe that you have your instructions, and we'll look forward to having that language before us as quickly as you can.
Okay, I have part 2, which has to do with the Agricultural Dispute Resolution Committee. This committee was established in May 2006, and it has some sunset language in the code which states that the committee will be abolished unless this code section is amended by the board. That means that next month, this committee goes put away, it's gone, eliminated, unless we take action to amend the code section.
What are your recommendations to us as that?
The
regarding that?
recommendation is to eliminate that code section I, which has the 2-year sunset, and just let this committee continue to run and roll from here on out.
Is that the recommendation of the Ag Coalition, the committee, and the Ag Commissioner?
It's the recommendation of the committee and the Ag Commissioner. The coalition has not been asked and brought
Okay.
into this.
All right. Any questions from the board?
Yes, I have some comments from this. Per the staff report, the training is 38 and a half hours. We're looking for new members. Does that mean each of the new members then go through their 38 and a half hours of training?
We discussed this at our last meeting on Friday, and we feel that we can bring the members up to speed by giving them the handouts that we have by putting them through mock dispute training and bringing them up to speed along with us.
And next year, we're going to have another change with more new members and another 38 or 12. I think my concern is, I like the intent of this, but for the few cases that there are, that's a huge expense for, I mean, I have the one that you had on the 4th. You had the winery for Scott. You had Susie, Arola Road. I wasn't sure if that was a land use issue or an ag issue, because Arola Road has been the legal access issue. If that's the case, it wasn't per se an ag issue. It was the fence and the cows. But the real issue was legal access, so that would not be part of it. And then Mary, is that your poultry one? But that's already gone to court.
Correct.
So why is that on your dispute resolution?
That is on the list because all 3 of those, no, 2 of those, the Arola Road and the chicken ones, did not go before the committee. But we did make initial phone calls, and the committee wanted to know the outcome of those initial phone calls. So we were sharing the information with them.
So here we are with one item. It's a big expense to do this in terms of training.
I thought she said that the training
No, we have the new members coming in.
Wait, but I thought the answer was that they're not asking for money for this, that they feel they've got enough materials and experience under their belt to be able to train the people themselves. Is that correct?
That is correct. I plan to put in the budget a couple $1,000 as opposed to the $11,000 that you granted me 2 years ago to have Ian Walkie come a few times a year, and he costs $1,000 per training, and have him come a few times a year to just move us along, make sure we're going down the correct road. But at budget, if that money is eliminated, Mr. Walkie will be eliminated.
So that's something to deal with at budget time, but I think Marita's, I think the way we're hearing you is that you feel that you're prepared to go forward at no or minimum cost.
But there's hard dollars and soft dollars. She's budgeting $2,000. You're budgeting $2,000, Mary, versus the $11,000. You might have this person come back, and that's another $1,000 for how many cases? There would have been 2, maybe 3 over a year's period of time. That's significant to me. I guess I have a problem with that. We have the other committee. It's a dispute one for environmental health that's legally required, and they don't meet very often. We have the Hardwood Advisory Committee, a mandated committee, which is supposed to deal with dispute issues. And we have this one, and I have a concern. Again, the intent, I like the cost for the number of cases and the training to make the people on the committee effective in dispute resolution, and I know this is something Steve feels strongly about. I don't see the expense being warranted for this. So
I will be putting pamphlets regarding the Ag Dispute Resolution Committee. They were just approved by the committee into the Planning Department, Ag Department, Farm Advisor, and Animal Control. And that may bring many more disputes our direction.
I'd be willing to go another 2 years to see what comes up. But just to tell them what's happening on a roller road, that's not what the objective of the committee is.
That same day, we had 5 hours of training.
That's hard dollar cost for 5 hours of training at a certain cost for one case.
Mary, weren't all 3 of those brought to your attention?
Yes.
Through the ag dispute
Yes, they
process? Weren't you in churches and some expert from UC Davis dispatched to look at the chicken one? And wasn't the Arolla Road one brought to our attention by the rancher there because gates were being left open?
Correct, that is correct. But with regards to the poultry one, the neighbors were not interested in participating. The one with the rancher on Arolla Road with the gates and the cattle, the neighbors were not interested in participating.
They were brought to the attention.
They were brought to the attention of the committee. Yes, absolutely.
Well, we have a dispute resolution group made up of people who are consistently here and who are involved in it. This happens to be members of the public who are involved in it. And it goes back to the Board of Equalization. I bring that up because we don't have enough cases, in my opinion, to have a separate Board of Equalization. So I guess my opinion is still the same for the cost to have people trained. It isn't worth, since we do have staff, a farm advisor, an ag commissioner, the planning director and so forth, who deal with this for the very few times it comes up.
Well, and I think you should be patting yourself on the back because of that. One of the primary reasons this was set up initially was the concern about that zoning code that we just discussed, and the many, many problems that are going to be created with it. And this would be a means by which those problems could be addressed. Fortunately, we haven't had that many problems with that new zoning code, at least that have been brought forward to the Ag Dispute Resolution Committee. The Ag Dispute Resolution Committee is, there was that initial training cost, and I think everybody on that committee feels that we can sort of start flying the coop, if you will, and try out, and we have enough information to help train new people, because believe me, the committee itself realizes, well, look at what happens when someone drops out. They aren't going to go through all this training. We can't continually do this. And that realization is there, and I don't think the committee itself expects the board to continually, year after year, fund that kind of training. It would be prohibited. But I think there's a good 7 people on that committee that have gone through the training, 14 to start, but not everybody made it, that can, with the information we've received, we can continue on, hopefully, and hopefully there won't be that many disputes. And I think that's great. That's a good sign.
Other comments from the board?
I'm just wanting to express my appreciation for the fact that it was set up. I think that we are only destined to see more potential issues coming up that if it can be resolved through the efforts of this committee, I would applaud that. So I would like to see it, I don't know, I'm open to suggestions about how we might sunset it for some period of time to look at it again, so that it just, it doesn't have to be there forever and funded unnecessarily forever. If it turns out in another 4 years or so that they're not seeing that much activity, then I guess I might change my opinion. But I certainly want to see it go forward now.
Bill?
Well, I think we're fortunate to have this committee, and rather than bring this back and open it up and we discuss the same issues every year, 2 years, or 3 years, I'm for eliminating the sunset provision. To be honest with you, I think if it becomes a burden, it would be really a shame of this board, or perhaps even during the budget session, or at some point, if it becomes an actual burden, which I doubt, that we should be made aware of that, or we should recognize that, and at that time eliminate this committee if that's what seems to be prudent. But as far as the training goes, the expense goes, from what I've heard, the expense is quite minimal. If the 38 hours of training is the initial, and the turnover is slight, and the number of cases heard pick up, it seems to me that the training provided by the existing committee members should be sufficient. I mean, you mentioned the Board of Equalization. This board sits as the appeals board for the Board of Equalization. How much training do we get? I didn't get any. If you call that trip down to, you call that training?
We were tormented for
So and yet we sit here, and so I don't want to get to the point where it'd be the same thing as maybe this board should sit as the Ag Dispute Committee. I'm not for that. These folks have gone through the training, and they have taken their responsibilities seriously, and I appreciate the work they do. And I don't see that it's a great expense. If you're not going to ask each member to go through 38 hours of training, I could understand that would be perhaps an unwarranted expense. But I think that the existing members can quite easily provide the training necessary to sit as that group. It's no harm, no foul. If the number of cases do not pick up in the next few years, and or if it becomes an issue at budget time, whether it's for the department or the county at large, I think that should be recognized at the time and some action taken. So at this point, I would like to see the Ag Dispute Resolution Committee just go forward
and not have them feel like the sword of Damocles is hanging, in 6 months or 2 years, we're going to be out of here anyway, so on and so forth. So that's my 2 bits worth.
All right. I agree with Bill. I would substitute the sunset clause, a report in 2 years so that we would be aware of the statistics and what progress and how many things were solved. I'd also comment on a couple of things. I think it took longer to get people to a feeling of confidence in the skill set necessary to do these interventions, and it took until, I guess, next week to get the other departments, which should be referring some things that are taking a great deal of staff time, to this committee composed of volunteers for the most part. Theoretically, the net economic effect would be to free up staff to do the work they're supposed to be doing, and having people who are smart in issues of ag and now much smarter in terms of conflict resolution go and work on some of these things. Every Arola road, and even if Arola...
Leave my Arola road alone.
All right, I'll leave. Every chicken argument has a number of different directions it can go. The particular one in question took at least 4 visits from the sheriff's office, coming from San Andreas all the way up to about a 45-minute commute to the place, and took ag staff and code compliance staff and just about every department we had, including environmental health at some point, to get into what essentially was a neighbor dispute that, if it had come in earlier, would have had much greater opportunity for resolution and not wasting all that staff time. So, and ultimately court time as well. Every one of these we can prevent through this process saves the county lots of person hours and expense. It's just beginning to get to the point where it's going to be publicized. There's going to be working relationships set up with the other departments, and let's find out whether that's going to get the volume that we could anticipate, and whether it alleviates the reliance on multiple departments intervening in never-ending neighbor disputes. That's the question, and it is as yet not really fully tested, but it's ready to run. Let's not cut it off before it has a chance to prove itself. There's good people on here. They've dedicated themselves to it. I favor the elimination of the sunset clause, but a report in 2 years and a rebudgeting of this at a very minimum amount, because we've got the skill set now, and it should be able to replicate within the group. So that's my position.
My position is to abolish the sunset. It's your budget unit. If it's starting to cost money, I would certainly expect you to highlight that in budget deliberations.
Yep. Okay. All right, so I think you have clarity on both issues you've brought up. Okay. I do believe the sunset, on that question, I believe I heard 3, maybe 4.
You can make it 4.
Okay, that'd be 4 on that.
Marita's 5. Don't leave Marita out.
No, I'm
Marita
not.
wanted the sun.
I
Marita
wanted to
sunset.
extend it for 2 years.
For 2
I do
years.
not
That was a
want to
different
eliminate
position.
the sunset.
So
It's like Tom always says, once something's established, you can never get rid of it. And
Well, this is
Marita, this was just a reconfiguration.
this is just a committee. I mean, this
You already
is
had
something-
something.
no, we already had one,
This
and I
isn't something
knew
where you
that.
start subsidizing somebody, then try to undo it.
It went from a staff thing, which costs staff hours, to less of a staff thing that costs some training up front. That's what happened.
There was volunteers involved on the previous one as well. The effort again was because of concerns expressed about the zoning code. It became a much more inclusive committee where you have general public as well as agricultural interests.
All right, this board is now due 20 minutes ago in Angels Camp. I believe we've dealt with the issues before us. Is there anything else that you wish
Provided me with
clarity?
direction, that's it, thank you.
All right, thank you for your presentations. Board, anything further on this subject?
Just one quick thing. Mr. Garamendi, there's an effort that's going to be brought before this board soon about having a board of building appeals that would be solely for the purpose of arbitrating situations where, like a builder, a homeowner builder, or a general contractor or subcontractor has some sort of a dispute about code interpretation. say a building inspector comes out and says, your window is 2 inches too high, it's got to come down, and there's some issue about whether the code is right or whether the inspector's interpretation of the code is right. I've served on these boards before, and they meet very infrequently. There is, it's in statute that this county should have one, but doesn't have one. It seems to me that this conflict resolution board could sit also as that board if they were to have an engineer on there. So just throwing it out as a possibility that it might be some economies of scale if they could make themselves available to hear these kinds of things too.
Well, the training itself, the expense was in learning about mediation.
Mm-hmm.
And a mediator can mediate any situation. You don't have to be an expert in it to do that. But it also includes fair hearings that come before the board and just fact-finding. And probably a lot of reasons these things don't get as far as they do to the committee is that they're resolved simply on a fact-finding basis. You go out and talk to somebody and you go, oh, and it's resolved. If the committee can be of help, I suppose we'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
Especially if it means that it's life.
All right. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
It's life.
If it's going to extend it tonight.
Okay, how many people are going to Angels?
I'll go.
I am.
All right.